Hi there! Tonight I'm starting this studio vlog a bit too late to even attempt any natural light shots. I'm so sorry about that, but I'm also so thankful for these big neutral lights that still makes it possible to work through the darkness as well. And I feel like I'm starting to get into a nice flow with these studio vlogs, so I don't want to lose it due to a lack of daylight. Frankly, I love doing them, and your emails of support these past couple of weeks have certainly been a huge motivation as well, so thank you so much for that. I don't know why I didn't start with these behind-the-scenes vlogs sooner, or I honestly think I was just too overwhelmed with the idea of planning the shots, filming myself looking representable both personally and studio-wise, figuring out how to edit them, what to say and so on, that I just kept pushing it off for years now. But it's never too late, and there's always room for improvement, regardless of how long you've been in the game. And this is actually one of the things I love the most about running our own small art business. There's always so much to learn, and when you think you've got something figured out, everything changes and you need to start problem solving and figuring it out again. It's a constant mode of learning, but I actually think that that's also part of the beauty of being an artist. You're never fully done in the sense that you've got to keep the eyes and mind of a student to continue to evolve, try new things, experiment, learn, and ultimately grow as a creator and person. Alright, enough with that rant as an introduction. By now you might be wondering what I'm working on in this video. If you had a chance to watch the past few vlogs, you saw that I've worked on a series of 3 spontaneous mixed media pieces featuring watercolor and interior embroidery. As I shared the progress of the pieces, many of you have requested for the patterns, so I thought I'd document the process of turning these embroideries into stitchable patterns for you guys. Now, most of the time we create the patterns first and then use a transfer method before stitching. This time, however, all the embroideries were already stitched as I drew them directly onto the fabric. In other words, there was no transfer method used, and there were also no proper patterns created before I began to color and stitch. Just an important note, when you wish to apply watercolor to your design, be sure to use a transfer method that does not dissolve in water. For example, use a light box and trace with a permanent ink. So as all the embroideries were already done, I had to approach the pattern creation a bit differently, using the ready-made art pieces as the basis for drawing cleaner designs. And when I say cleaner, I refer to more neat and steady lines as opposed to the more nervous and loose lines that you see in a sketch. The first part always begins with pencil so that I can rub it out and modify lines as needed. Now the real concentration comes when starting to add the ink, which is also when I've got to try to channel that confidence to my hand to remain steady. It gets steadier with practice, so don't worry if you're not used to drawing lines straight, it's super normal, they will be wobbly at first. When all the ink is done, I rub off the remaining pencil traces before I scan the design, and when the design is scanned, I begin the next step, which is to note all of the stitch techniques and colors of the floss that I used. Thankfully, we've got one of these color charts from DMC to assist with the correct color coding for the embroideries. If I know that I'm creating patterns from the start, I usually take notes of the colors as I proceed. But for these ones, the process was very intuitive and spontaneous, and I didn't want to break the flow of creating them. So I just go back to the color chart and look up the color references afterwards. Before they're complete for you to stitch, Charles edits the notes in the computer so that it gets easier for you to read than my handwritten scribbles, so don't worry about that. If you've been eyeing these patterns too, don't miss to check them out in the link in the description below to give them a go. Just a heads up, I haven't noted the watercolor names as I highly encourage you to experiment with the paint yourself. And perhaps you don't feel like adding paint at all, which also works perfectly fine. We have a free watercolor embroidery for beginners workshop on charlesnailonacademy.com that will be super helpful if you've never done watercolor embroidery before and you feel excited to try these patterns. The previous studio vlogs with the full processes of all 3 designs will also be hugely helpful in understanding the step-by-step process. Can't wait to see what you make. Bye!